Whose side are you on? We're brought up to believe that everyone must choose a side, that there's a political spectrum that runs from one extreme to the other. You're either on the left or you're on the right. We accept this as true even without thinking about it because that's what we were taught in grade school. But what if this view is asked backwards, sideways, dead wrong? On the one side, the far right, you have Nazism and fascism and the kind of brutal nationalism, the tribalism of Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. All of these far-right isms involve a lot of government control of the means of production. There's no freedom of speech, there's no freedom of association, there's hardly any freedom at all. But as we know from grade school, the body count on the far right is staggering. On the far left, you have socialism and Marxism and Maoism. All of these isms, we're told, are fundamentally different than those on the right, but when you think about it, they sort of feel the same. You still have government control of businesses and factories. You still have no freedom of speech, no freedom of association, no political freedom whatsoever. And the body count is equally staggering. This doesn't even make any sense. Is the middle of the road halfway between socialism and fascism? Between Marxism and Nazism? Of course not. That's silly. This phony left-right spectrum, it serves two functions, it creates two problems. First of all, it keeps us fighting with each other. When we otherwise might find common values, we might find common ground, we might agree on the rules that hold civil society together. Second, it allows people in the middle to claim some sort of moral superiority because they don't have an agenda, they don't have an ideology, they just want to do what works. We've heard this before.
I am not an ideologue. I'm not.
Technocratic progressivism, like espoused by Barack Obama and his cohorts, is still an ism. We'll get to progressivism in this series. Be on the lookout for this. When a politician starts talking about good government, they're really talking about more government. As it turns out, good government is a myth. In truth, this whole left-right thing, it's the wrong way to think about political philosophy. This celebrated middle of the road, where Republicans collude with Democrats to say bail out Wall Street, this can't be where the good stuff comes from, can it? Politics doesn't go from left to right, it goes from top to bottom. At the bottom are all of these despots that want to dictate the terms of your life, how you earn a living, what you're allowed to say in the public square, even what you're allowed to think and where you're allowed to worship. At the bottom, there is no liberty. There's only misery. At the top, we're going to talk about liberty. We're going to talk about people cooperating. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship and all of the really cool things that happen when people are left free. We're going to talk about why the rule of law matters so much, why the Constitution is designed specifically to restrain big government. Now, let's take a look at what a real political spectrum actually looks like. Here is an outline of all the systems of government, what I'm calling the Deadly Isms. At the bottom, you'll see the worst types of totalitarianism, National Socialism, Marxism, Communism. I've always wondered why it is that communism is considered a far-left ideology and Nazism is far-right. Stalin and Hitler, they both seized private businesses, they both banned freedom of speech, they both killed millions of people. In terms of real people, are these two systems so different that they deserve to be on opposite sides of the political spectrum? I don't think so. All of these isms have one thing in common. They put somebody else in charge of your life, someone in charge of your happiness, someone who thinks they know better than you do, someone who is willing to use brutal, unchecked force, government force, to force you to comply. Of course, the experts, you know, the tenured professors and the really smart people in big media, they'll never admit this. Self-styled smart people think that socialism in practice is sometimes spiraled out of control, but the aspirations are so noble. If we could just get it right next time, try one more time, it'd be all unicorns and rainbows. Nothing to do with military dictators or fascist regimes. We aren't typically taught about the atrocities committed in the name of some noble ideal, some ism that was more important to achieve than the body count of innocent victims felled along the path to righteousness. You see what's going on in Venezuela today? Have you ever been told about what happened when Chairman Mao imposed his Great Leap Forward in China? Did you know that the bloody mess in Cambodia under the Khmer Rouge was the product of Marxist professors and idealists? Maybe not. I'm guessing you haven't heard these stories before, but this stuff is important. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. The history of the Deadly Isms is bloody beyond belief, and there are millions of people around the world suffering because we haven't learned these lessons. That's right, we are absolutely going to go there. It's going to get really uncomfortable because the Deadly Isms at the bottom of the spectrum, it's the worst of man's inhumanity to man. As we move upward, we see things like democratic socialism. Bernie Sanders says it's different than regular socialism, that it's kinder and gentler. It's not like a dictatorship at all. But is it really different? Or is this just plain old socialism with a smiley face? And then there's corporatism. This is big business in cahoots with big government, fixing prices, raising costs, screwing the competition. This is pretty much where we are today. Finally, at the top, we have liberty. We have freedom. We have free people coming together to innovate, to create, to solve problems together. There's no such thing as good government. There's only limited or unlimited government. And this whole left-right thing, it's an illusion. The political spectrum that I'm interested in is one that separates authoritarians from those of us that believe in liberty. And that earlier question I asked, whose side are you on? It was a trick. There are no sides. How about this? I'll be on your side as long as you don't hurt people and you don't take their stuff. In this series, we're going to take a look at all the deadly isms and see how they've shaped the world as we know it. We'll look at socialism and communism, but we'll also look at fascism in all of its horrible ways. We'll get a bead on the style of democratic socialism that is so popular in Europe and the corporate cronyism that dominates government everywhere. In the end, I hope you'll see, as I have, that none of these isms have what it takes to save the world. Only freedom and voluntary cooperation can do that.